Happy New Year, everyone. Hope your 2021 is off to the best possible start. I'm not going to take up too much of your time. Just wanted to share what I hope will be some encouragement for you as you begin this year. So, of course, many of us recognize that the start of a new year is when many will set resolutions for themselves, goals, and most recently, and I'm saying most recently because it's recent for me in terms of when I became aware, they will set intentions. So I've never really been good at resolutions and goal setting just because I keep everything housed in my mind. And what I discovered is if I do not have a way to really mark or measure whether or not I'm meeting that resolution or that goal, then oftentimes I don't even realize if I've met it or if I haven't met it. So I personally like intentions, and let's be real, intentions do not only need to be defined at the start of a new year, but intentions really are just how we choose to govern our lives day by day. And so, I try to be intentional and have the right intentions about everything that I do. So anyway, as I was sitting thinking about, what my intention would be for, and I'm walking, what my intention would be for 2021, I sat, for quite some time in silence and stillness because I wanted to hear clearly what that intention would be. And so for me, acceptance is what came to mind. And I felt like, as I went through what acceptance meant to me, that it could possibly benefit you. So it's easy for us to hear the words or to say acceptance of self, but what does that really mean? So when I thought of acceptance as it relates to me personally, I thought about the areas that I struggle with when it comes to being okay and content with that. And so these were my takeaways. So acceptance for me is accepting that I'm both knowing and uncertain. The knowing part is easy because when when you have information, when you can see clearly the big picture, even the details, it's easy to kind of walk in that knowing. It's the uncertainty that's the difficulty. And when we're uncertain about a number of things, it can actually cripple us. And so, I have to accept that I am both a person of knowing and uncertainty. There are some things that I know. There are some things that are uncertain for me. And if anything, no truer words, what is it? In hindsight, what is it? 2020 vision, or 2020 is always in hindsight. For some reason, that saying escapes me, but it's always easier when you get through something to then look back at it and understand. It's much more difficult when you're living out to really understand how you're supposed to respond or act in that moment. And so 2020 taught us that there is a lot of uncertainty, and many of us would freely admit that had we known the things that 2020 would bring, we would have done things differently and we would have prepared our life in a different way. But I think what we have to recognize is that in those times of being uncertainty, that we do have to be flexible, that we do have to be adaptable. And while we might not be able to control the things that happen in those situations, we can always control our responses and our behavior. So I have to accept that I will know and that there are things that I'll always be uncertain of, but I will not allow the uncertainty to cripple me. The other part, and this was the big one for me, is that I am both full and wanting, and that is a hard dichotomy, if I'm even using that in the correct context, for many people to accept, because especially in a number of religions and in the faith that I grew up in, I don't know if it's a overt message or a subtle message, is that to express desire for certain things in some ways can be greed, or not even greed, but an unappreciation for what you have and for where you are. So I've wrestled with this of being fully aware of my blessings, fully aware of the goodness that has happened to me and to my family. But I also can't deny that there's this wanting, and not necessarily for material things, not that that's wrong. I mean, we are having this human experience, and living life to the fullest doesn't necessarily mean to acquire and hoard things, but it does mean that you can enjoy things, and particularly if they're not detrimental to you and they're not detrimental to other people. And I'm also wanting more in the sense of, you may be blessed with a good job, but maybe you want more because you sense that there is greater work and greater purpose in you, greater elevation, more that you can do. So to say that you want more, to expand and increase in that way, is not to deny or be ungrateful for what you have. It is just simply to say, there is more that I can do, there's more that I can be, there's more than I can have, and it's okay to do that. So that's acceptance for me. And then acceptance as it relates to change. There's a lot of change happening in my family, as many of you who had children that graduated in 2020, you may have dropped your kids already off at their residence halls in the fall. But I'm grateful in that we were able to have a little bit more time with our graduating senior, and so in a few days we'll drop him off at college. And listen, I love my children. I don't know about you guys, but I love my children and I love having them around. And the thought of his presence not filling my space each and every day, it's tough. It's tough for me. And so I'm accepting this change that, these children that I've been blessed with, that they are independent of me and they have an existence that's separate from mine. And I've got to accept that, and I've got to let them be their own person. So anyway, this went a little bit longer than I had intended. But I hope that you'll take these nuggets and that you'll look at those areas that you've been having trouble accepting, and that you'll begin to embrace. I read this the other day, that the human mind is too complex for any of us to understand. And so we have these competing thoughts, competing desires, that sometimes, they cause conflict. And we have to accept that we are multifaceted human beings, and that's okay. That's what makes you unique. Happy New Year, everyone.